Yo, you already know
Yo,
we are. We're gonna get straight into it. We're gonna speak about Joe Budden and Spotify, the beef that he has with Spotify right now. You wanna go into a bit more on it and explain what's going on to the people that don't understand.
yeah, BPS with Spotify, Charlemagne, Gilly, everybody. Yeah, so
More about,
basically, what was that?
more about him leaving Spotify and how that's working out. What's going on?
Yeah, so basically, I think that their contract is up for renewal. Like if you're a regular listener to about the podcast,
Very good
like
point.
we are, then they've been talking about it for the last couple of months and stuff. So obviously, when he signed there, it was a big deal, exclusive deal. I think it was one of the first in terms of hip hop, like black-owned podcasts that had like an exclusive deal with a particular streaming service, and they really put money behind it. You know, billboards, this, that, and all that. At that point, Apple was dominating. Apple had pretty much everybody. If you wanted to listen to a podcast, you had to go on that app, on that podcast app on Apple, pretty much, and that's where you got most of your stuff. So him going to Spotify really opened up a lot of doors in terms of like other podcasts going there, and just helping them get like a bigger percentage of the podcast market. They literally went from like, I don't know, 5-10% to like 30% of the market basically going forward. And the reason why like a lot of these streaming services have started trying to like secure podcast deals, which pretty much 2, 3, 4 years ago they weren't at all, is because I think there was a law that the record companies had, or like a contract that they signed with the streaming services, where for every stream on your platform, whatever money you make, we take 70% of it. Yeah. So it's not just the music that we sell or whatever, but whatever Apple makes, whatever Spotify makes, they get 70% of whatever the music is. Like we're basically licensing out the music to you. You don't own it. Spotify, Apple, whatever. If you're playing My Guy on your thing, whatever money you make from it, I take 70%. So they thought, okay, this long term it's not going to leave us in the best place. So they thought, okay, let's get into the podcast market, where instead of like a 3-minute song, you get 2-3 hours of a podcast where you're constantly advertising to people. They're using the app, they're on your platform, and
they can own it.
yeah, and they can own 100% of it. Like they can buy it off you, employ you, and just make you a worker, or whatever type thing, or whatever. And that is the future, basically, podcast.
There's more profit.
Yes, not even just that, but like the music already belongs to the record company. They're not going to give it to you.
But yeah,
But a podcast, yeah, go on.
so obviously, yeah. So Joe Budden's beef is that, obviously he got signed 2 years ago and he definitely went over his numbers. He's named a couple of problems he had with I think they offered him a bonus of Rolexes, but they wouldn't give it to them. But the bigger theme is that he felt like they've been constantly trying to sign podcasts to replace him, or because he's been number one at Spotify, which if people don't specify, it wasn't number one around the world as number one podcast and all streaming platforms. It was number one as an exclusive Spotify podcast, which is important, because if you're signed to Spotify exclusive, you're number one. You're their best podcast. You're the biggest provider. You bring in probably the most of their revenue. Yeah. So constantly, they brought in Amy Schumer. They brought in Michelle Obama. They brought in Joe Rogan. They brought in so many people, but he stayed number one. His is that he thought when it comes to this new deal, because of what he's done, not only would they significantly offer him more money, which they have, they would significantly offer him. He wanted a deal, not, well, let me say similar to Joe Rogan, but he saw Joe Rogan's deal where I think it's I'd estimated it's 100 million years. We don't know how many years he signed to, but it's a license. They don't own his.
For 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years. They don't own it. It goes straight back to him. Whereas Joe Budden said that they tried to own. Not only did they want to own his podcast, they wanted to own his pull-up, which is his own thing on YouTube. They wanted to own part of what Rory does with his whatever.
So basically, like a 360 deal that the labels do, where like they own basically the rights to anything you do that has your name or your likeness or whatever. They get a percentage of it, So
which is crazy. But what do you think about this deal? I think I think like this. These are the two ways I think. I think you signed the first deal. Obviously, you had to be happy with the first. Not happy, but you signed the first deal. So, to my recollection, you weren't under distress. Nobody forced you to. You signed the first deal. Now, in this business, Joe Budden has always said, and I've always heard him say many times, this business is shady, it's predatory, it always takes advantage. So at this moment, no matter what the rapport you have, no one in business is permanent friends or enemies. Mm-hmm. Even if it's upsetting, you should kind of expect it. They're always going to try and lowball you, because why would they offer you more than you're worth if they feel like, one, they could, provide. Now they're at a point where they're like, you help them get from here to there. You signed Joe Rogan's podcast. They feel like they're bigger than you essentially now. They're like, yo, we needed you to get into the podcast market. We're in the market now. You've taken us here. You can't take us back down there. We're always going to be here. Or even if you leave, we might go down to there. But now we don't need you as much as we did a couple years ago. I put in a reference of, Real Madrid didn't need Ronaldo as much as when they sold him as they probably did 5 years prior. Do you understand what I'm saying? You're only as valuable as the person who's offering you the contract feels that you are. Do you understand? Yeah. So I obviously I see that. I can see why he'd be upset. I'd be upset because I feel like putting all this work and I'm just not getting valued. But at the same time, it's business. They're not your friends. They're not your homies. They're always going to try and lowball you. Do you know what I'm saying? But I just feel like.
But that's the thing. I don't even think they were lowballing him, because from what he was saying.
He's the biggest chicken.
No, we're talking 8-9 million. It was he was hinting at like 8, 9, 10 million.
It's like Joe Rogan's getting 100. But you remember?
No. But I don't think he was comparing himself to Joe Rogan. He was just saying that you getting us here made it more attractive and helped you to get all these other guys. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that when you're paying me or compensating me or whatever.
See, this is if I was him, I'm just saying if I was him, and first of all, if you're designing a new contract, you have to look. I look around the world, yeah. I'm not. I don't know much about podcasting or whatever, but I look around the world at who has the most attractive contracts. And for me, out of all the people, music, all that. In terms of employee, whatever, I look at football. I think football have amazing contracts. You know what I'm saying? They have outstanding. I would look at it and I say, okay, I'm the first podcast of this type. The first thing I'm signing is a match highest earner clause, yeah? That's it, done, on day one. There's no podcast that can make more money than me, yeah? If they come in, they have to jump. Now, I hear what you're saying about the 8, 9, or 10, or whatever they offered him, but the way you see it is like this. I don't know if they're offering that as to Joe individually. I don't know if they're offering it to Joe as a split, because remember, it's a big difference if I offer you 10 mil, you have to split 3 mil with Rory, you have to split another 3 with Mar, you have to split a mil with Parks, you know what I'm saying? You've got other people to pay, whereas Joe Rogan's keeping 100% of the revenue. So stuff sounds more appealing before the breakdowns and the splits happen. So I don't know about that. And what I'll also say is, do you think that he'll go somewhere where it's not even just about money? Because if someone offers him that same deal, but without owning any of his music, any of his podcasts or any of his outside ventures, that's more profitable in itself. I think he would have been if they never.
I think that's what he was trying to get across. That it's about ownership rather than ownership and partnership rather than I'm working for you. Yeah, I mean. So it was more like, okay, that's because he was hinting. That's why I signed the 2-year thing in the first place. Yeah, I mean. So if anything was looking shady or not really looking up to whatever, then I could ghost. Then throughout the podcast, he made he was talking about they had set certain bonuses and like things in place where if they were to hit those bonuses, hit those marks, they would get those bonuses. But the thing is, they determine those marks, and like halfway through, the metrics change.
Where he tried to make it race. Now, there's some issues. 100% stuff has been race, and maybe in this case, I don't know the people behind the scenes, but I didn't like the fact that he said it's because they're white or whatever. Because listen, in the music business, yeah, and I've watched the music business. Obviously, I don't know as well as him. Bruv, LA Reid's, all those guys ripping off TLC, they weren't white guys. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't suddenly, if suddenly we get a black guy. Yes, if you're just a moralistic person or whatever, then you're more likely not to rip people off, yeah? But there has definitely been black people in certain positions that have ripped people off. I don't look at it like, it's black or it's white. I look at it as the music business, and it's literally, that system is it's almost set up to rip people off, because unlike sports, NBA, basketball, football, there's rules and regulations. It isn't really rules and regulations in music. You can sign the most messed up deal, and unless someone takes you to court and fights you for it, it's just going to let it happen. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I didn't like when he did it like that, like, because they see us and then, you know what I mean? Now, I'm not saying that there isn't people out there that don't look down on his podcast and think Joe Budden doesn't, like when he said, they tried to tell him, this is how you should approach your audience, this is how you should do this. of course, yeah, he felt disrespected. And I think that's the bigger issue here. I don't think it as much money. I feel like he felt disrespected. When they told him he needs to do podcasts like this, when he feels that they're trying to do a 360 deal, and his whole career, he's been fighting against 360 deals, and they just come at him with a 360 deal. When he sees the way...
But even that is, you know, he tried to hint like it was a race thing, but it's not really a race thing, because if you're in a black company, the executives are going to try and tell the artists, oh, you should do it like this, or you should do it like that. Now, they may be more culturally clued up, as to your audience and like how the product comes across. But the creator still clashes with them and like, I want to do it this way, and you're looking at it from a business angle, and you want to do it this way. You know, it's just a difference between somebody who watches the numbers and somebody who's like all about the product. You know what I mean? So it's just, that's where the clash comes.
Creators and, like you said, creators and businessmen are always going to clash. It's almost like they need each other a lot of the time, because the businessman can see how to get it to the people, and the creator can make the content that the people enjoy. So when the only thing I don't like the fact that one pretend like they don't need the other. They both almost need each other. I've never seen anyone that's exclusively good at both. Because if you're a great content creator, you tend to have a good businessman that comes along. If you're a great businessman, you find the content and you're like, oh, let me help you promote that, etc. So it's almost like they need each other, but it's almost they don't like each other, because they don't respect each other's craft as much. Like, oh, this guy, this content, anyone could make content, or someone looks at you, anyone could be a businessman. You know what I mean? So it's almost like they don't respect each other. And obviously, Joe is a content guy. But when I look, but
go on.
Let's go into Charlemagne thing. So Charlemagne spoke about it. I didn't listen to it as in depth as you did, but can you give the people a gist of like what he said?
Yeah, it was just like a short clip, just like a throwaway comment. So one, I don't think Charlemagne should have commented the way he did, because he came across a bit salty and unprepared. Now I know Charlemagne because I listen to Brilliant Idiots regularly, his podcast, and they seem to be hinting about speaking about it on their podcast, but then they decided to leave it till like this week or whatever, and they were going to go in depth. So I would expect a reply from him soon or whatever. But he basically said, well, it's your fault. The contract that you signed wasn't good enough, and that you're building a bad reputation for yourself with all these companies. Everything is so short term, and you keep on like
I don't know. I feel like this whole. I hear what you're saying. Yes, bad reputation, but is it really a bad reputation if every contract I'm getting tends to be almost 10 times larger than the last one? You know what I'm saying? If you're saying I'm terrible with business, but I go to Everyday Struggle, yeah. Then I complain. Then I go to Revolt and I'm arguably paid more. Then I go to Spotify and I'm paid even more. Then Spotify offer me a bigger contract. Now everyone's calling my phone. So it all depends how you see business. Because what I see from Joe is he never complains about the contract that he signed. He wasn't complaining. When they do this whole I've never seen him complain about the contract while he's in it. He never complained about the Spotify contract they gave him. He never complained about the Everyday Struggle contract they gave him. What he does is he's smart. He signs short deal contracts. And based on his trajectory of what he thinks the show's going to do, he asks for a new one based off that. Now, if he wants to leave. But I don't look at someone that just signs deals and stays somewhere and takes the low ball and says, this is just part of the game. I don't look at it as a smart business person.
No. I don't think he was saying. I don't think he was saying that. Charlemagne was probably basically hinting that that he's in negotiation whether he stays in the Breakfast Club or not. So his contract runs out in December this year, or whatever.
But it's he's saying Charlemagne though.
No, but he's saying that regardless of the outcome, you'll never hear him talking about money. Regardless of whatever negotiation, you never hear him talk about money in public and all this sort of thing or whatever. That when we're in private and we're going back and forth or whatever, but I'm never going to have that reputation where, I didn't get what I want, so I'm going to go on my podcast and just destroy the company online and say, they were trash and they were this, or like how you did it with Complex, all that sort of thing or whatever. Now, I'm not saying, saying things work for somebody. I would not advise most of you guys out there, you're not Joe. Not even regular people, even creators or whatever, to just go on your platform. It's part of his brand, but I'm talking about the overall business strategy, for what works most of the time or most people. Because you say, listen, whether it's Diddy, Hove, all these guys, you didn't hear any talk about their renegotiations, whether it's with Rockefeller or with Bad Boy or this or that, whatever. Like, you just heard the deal when it came out, or if they left the situation, they just left. You didn't hear nothing before you know it. They've signed another one.
What I'll say is that I'll hear what you're saying, but it depends what your final goal is. Because if your final goal is to make your own company, which I think Joe could be, he wants to probably make his own. Or like when I heard him talk about the podcast division at Breakfast Club, iHeart and all that. I felt like he wants to make his own pod. If it was up to him, he could have his own podcast division and he has shares in or something. So I think his goal isn't to be an employee. Whereas I think Charlemagne is more cool with taking, and there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like Joe was kind of shitting on people who take checks. I don't think that's like shit on. You know what I'm saying? I feel like Charlemagne's cool with taking the large check and having everyone do the behind the scenes for him, rather than take a bit less and own it. You know what I'm saying? That's a choice. Because obviously Charlemagne, when he said Charlemagne doesn't own anything, he does. He owns his book. You know what I mean? To an extent, I think he owns part of his podcast. You know what I mean? He does own things. But yeah, his largest revenue in terms of the Breakfast Club, he doesn't own. So, you know what I mean? It all depends on what your final goal is. Charlemagne clearly wants to have like a TV show or something like that where he's in front of the camera, but he doesn't necessarily own, the network or part of the network that he's on. So I think he has to have good relationships with people. Whereas Joe's thing's always been about independence. No matter where he's been, he doesn't feel, it's not natural for him to feel like he's in a contract where he's an employee. You always want to be a shareholder. So it's just it's never going to be his character.
Yeah, I think, but I think what Joey lives out, is that a lot of people try to go independent, and a lot of people it didn't work out for. Yeah, I mean, so. It's, yes, I can be. I'm going to be my own boss. I'm going to determine my own hours.
So how do you do it? Let's ask you. How do you do it?
I think you have a long term and a short term goal. Yeah, I mean, and I think you can work on both at the same time. I think you can both work for a company and have your own business at the same time, and be using one income to supplement or to.
But you could always do it like this. It depends.
To help the other.
When it comes to money, first of all, if someone's lowballing your money, then you always constantly start saying, okay, because it wasn't just about the money. If someone's lowballing your money, you say, fine, the contract's short. That's what you have to do. Like, no matter what,
but let me get an example here, like Envy, yeah? No matter what, whether they sack him or they don't sack him or whatever, yeah? He's a DJ, he's got his name, he's going to be good. Now, he takes the money he earns from, dog. He takes the money he earns from iHeart, yeah, and he's massive into property, yeah. Then he partners with he has brand deals with 50 for his alcohol, and this and that. So he's into multiple things. None of these guys just work at a radio station. Yeah. So it's just so dumb to look at those guys and go, well, you guys are just workers, breakfast. Or your biggest earner has to be your thing. No, it doesn't. Yeah, I mean, now at the end of the day, I can have loads of multiple small things, and when you add them up all together, they're worth more than the bigger where I get the big paycheck or whatever. But you can't buy that visibility. Me being on the number one breakfast radio show or whatever, you can't buy that publicity. You can't buy that thing. Like the thing I would have to do to be as big as this. Yeah, I mean, like Joe Rogan didn't just get to where he is overnight. My man's been podcasting for like 6-7 years.
But I did see Joey when he was.
And now he signed his deal.
I did see Joey when he was talking, when he was like, he said, "Oh, obviously they gave us a bonus to hit. We reached that, and they changed the goalposts. So what if people are moving around the contracts? If they say you need to do this, and then they change."
Wait. Hold on 1 second. Let me get these dogs up.
Yeah. So, what was I saying? What if?
We're talking about ownership and
What was I saying?
we're talking about ownership because Joe was talking like saying that for him the end game is to own his business.
Yeah, it's to own.
And that if you're not owning your business, then you shouldn't talk to him about his business. Basically, or have an opinion and all this stuff.
But the point that I'm trying to get to is, that's what I was saying about Joey's business. Yeah. So he was saying that not only are they lowballing him, but also they're moving the goalposts on your bonus and on your contract. So they're saying if you hit this target, then we'll give you X, Y, Z. He hit the target like you said, and then they're changing, saying no, this is not based off that. Also, they said they would give him the stats. That's part of the reason why he didn't go to Tidal. He asked for the stats in his podcast, and they wouldn't give them to him. They said, the stats, they're broken. So what happens at that point? What if that's true? That was part of your contract to release the numbers. You asked for the numbers, they're not giving it to you. Is that's like,
no, but that's the thing. Like, because the podcasting is
so
a very new industry, and American industry, and you're relying. There's no like governing body that's like keeping tabs of everything. There's no billboard that we can go to that tells us what the #1 podcast is. Yeah, like you're relying on the streaming platforms to tell you, who did the best, and that leaves room open for a lot of manipulation and stuff like that. Yeah, so they will say something like, okay, unless you got the most listens, but then how long did they stay? Did they stay 15 minutes or 20 minutes? Did they pause it and come back? Did they this? Did that? They'll come up with all sorts of metrics that fit whatever scenario they want.
But then you've got to take that. What I say is you've got to take everything you don't like about your first contract and almost write into your contract. You know what I'm saying? Tie it down. Like, okay, they have to listen for 15 minutes. So I believe that people are being when I say
but the thing about a contract, especially when it comes to, like I said, the metrics. So they didn't change anything in the contract. All that was written into the contract.
Yeah.
But then those guys changed the system in which they counted. It doesn't matter what you wrote in the contract. If I say, if you're #1, then you get this, and then I decide whether you're #1. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what's in the contract.
But you also said that you can do what you want. So maybe Joe could write a new contract and say, okay, I'm allowed to promote my other businesses. Yeah, in my opinion. So he could easily say, okay, I want to promote my own network, the Joe Budden network for minds and whatever. So you said, like, you can choose what you want to do. And
listen, I think they already have another situation somewhere else, and all this is just a publicity stunt anyway. You know what I mean? Like, get everybody talking, give yourself a good negotiating position in the market, all of that. You know what I mean? Like, I know these guys have probably have another situation somewhere else, whether it's Tidal or Apple or wherever.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean?
Guys, listen. If you're watching this video and you've been entertained, like, comment.
Yeah, subscribe.
Are you a creative? Are you a businessman? Are you both? Would you sign a bad deal to try and take the visibility and the positives from there? Or would you ignore the deal and try and go for yourself? You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And is there anything wrong with being an employee versus being an entrepreneur? I don't think so. I think your end goal, it's all about your end goal and the means to get there. You know what I'm saying? There's no point being an entrepreneur making no money. There's no point being an employee talking about you're going to be an entrepreneur if you're an employee for 50 years, you know? But yeah, man. Make sure you subscribe. We've got a lot more content coming out soon. Obviously, RIP Chad Boseman as always. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Peace.